Welcome back to ALPB Roundup. I'm Ryan, and it is time to take a look at officially the 2022 ALPB Roundup All-Star selections for the Atlantic League. I'm excited, you're excited, or else you're watching something that you're not excited about, which is kind of weird, but I guess thanks for being here. Again, if you need a refresher on the selection process, it's different than last year when we did voting. Voting last year was open to fans and, indie ball people and experts and analysts and, journalists and different front offices. But there was a bit of an imbalance, I felt, which was, we corrected it, but it was just a hassle when it comes to that. So to get full sort of neutrality across the board here, we're just doing ALPB Roundup selections based on, I watch a lot of Atlantic League baseball. I watch so much Atlantic League baseball. And I pour over the numbers, and I'm confident that not only do we have the best players in the league here on the All-Star team, I'm also extremely confident that you will not agree with me. But we should get this thing going. So without any more hesitation, let's start again in the North Division, and we'll look first at the infield starters. To recap the finalists, at catcher, we have Joe DiCarlo from the Ducks. We have the Blue Crabs' Joe DeLuca, Ryan Hogg, Colton Shaver from the Barnstormers. At first base, we have the Barnstormers' Kelly Dugan, the Ducks' Sam Travis, and the Blue Crabs' Jared Walker. At second base, we have the Ducks' Vladimir Frias, the Revolution's Jack Henley, the Barnstormers' Melvin Mercedes, and the Blue Crabs' Michael Wylansky. At third base, we have the Blue Crabs' Alex Crosby, the Revolution's Carlos Franco, and the Ducks' Davinson Romero. And finally, at shortstop, we have Angel Aguilar of the Ferry Hawks, we have the Ducks' Devin Marrero, and we have the Revolution's Elmer Reyes. Of those finalists, the North Division ALPB Roundup All-Star starters are: at catcher, Ryan Hogg; at first base, Kelly Dugan; at second base, Michael Wylansky; at third base, Carlos Franco; and at shortstop, Angel Aguilar. There were a lot of close ones there. We can talk about that, I'm sure, down the road. But Kelly Dugan was a shoo-in. Carlos Franco leads the league in WAR. Michael Wylansky has been dominant. Ryan Hogg, that was a close one. Very, very much could have gone to Colton Shaver. Even, that was a very close one at catcher. So I lost some time on that one. But we shall move on to the outfield. The finalists were B.J. Boyd from the Barnstormers, Ladarius Clark from the Barnstormers. From the Ducks, Rusney Castillo, Alejandro De Aza, Johnny Turbo, and Dustin Woodcock. From the Blue Crabs, Zach Collier, Braxton Lee, and Jack Sundberg. And from the Revolution, Connor Lean, Melky Mesa, and Troy Stokes Jr. Out of that group, the All-Star starting outfielders are Ladarius Clark, Alejandro De Aza, and Troy Stokes Jr. That one, again, could have gone a multitude of different ways, but Ladarius Clark has been great. Alejandro De Aza, I don't think anyone can argue with, and Troy Stokes Jr. was really put over the top by his fantastic fielding for the York Revolution. Moving right along to the DH position, where the finalists were the Blue Crabs' David Harris and the Revolution's JC Encarnacion. And the All-Star selection there for DH is David Harris. As the All-Star starting pitcher, the long list of nominees were as follows: Niall Ball and Brent Teller of the Barnstormers, Anderson De Leon, Scott Harkin, Brett Kennedy, and Stephen Tarpley of the Ducks. From the Ferry Hawks, Dakota Freese, Matt Salter, and Julio Tehran. From the Blue Crabs, Mitch Lamson, Mackenzie Mills, and Darryl Thompson. And finally from the Revolution, Jorge Martinez. Of that group, the top All-Star starter selected is Julio Tehran. Julio might not have been here long, but he was terrific while he was here. Moving along to the bullpen, the finalists among relievers were Sandy Baez from the Ducks and Kaiwei Lin from the Ducks. From the Blue Crabs, Patrick Baker, Andres Brusino, Bradley Roney, and Nick Wells. From the Ferry Hawks, Victor Capion, Connor Law, Chris Nunn, and Williams Ramirez. And from the Barnstormers, Brett Clark, Josh Graham, and Chase Johnson. The number one reliever selection is Andres Brusino from the Blue Crabs. Hard to argue with that one as well. He has been insanely dominant this year, and going back to last year, in fact. Looking to the rest of the All-Star pitchers selected as reserves, the starting pitchers, Anderson De Leon, Jorge Martinez, Mackenzie Mills, and Matt Salter. And the relievers, we have Patrick Baker, Victor Capion, Josh Graham, Kaiwei Lin, Chris Nunn, Williams Ramirez, and Nick Wells selected as the pitching for the All-Star team out of the North Division. North Division All-Star reserve position players are as follows: Alex Crosby, Joe DiCarlo, JC Encarnacion, Connor Lean, Elmer Reyes, Dea Benson-Romero, Colton Shaver, Sam Travis, and Jared Walker. Now we can discuss who was a near miss at the end of the video there, but we had lots of good competition across the North Division for All-Star spots. However, for now, we will turn our attention to the South Division, looking first at the infield starters. At catcher from the Dirty Birds, we had Alfredo Gonzalez and Yovan Gonzalez. From the Rockers, we had Mike Galino and Chris Proctor. From the Honey Hunters, we had Stuart Levy, and from the Genomes, we had Chase Vallot. At first base, we had Nick Longy from the Dirty Birds. We had the Rockers, Logan Morrison, and the Genomes, Chris Shaw. At second base, we had the Genomes, Luke Becker and Riley Mahan, as well as Gastonia's Joseph Rosa. At third base, we had Michael Martinez from the Rockers, the Genomes, Jimmy Paredes, and the Rockers, Xander Wheel. At shortstop, we had the Rockers, Giovanni Alfonso and Tyler Ladendorf. We had Connor Justice from the Dirty Birds, the Genomes, Claire Louis Rondon, and shortstop Jack Reinheimer, who was initially listed as a third baseman just because I switched the list in my head a little bit there. I've been looking at a lot of people who throw across the diamond. Okay, you're going to cut me a break on that one. Of the finalists, the South Division ALPB Roundup All-Star starters are: at catcher, Chase Vallot; at first base, Nick Longy; at second base, Joseph Rosa; at third base, Xander Wheel; and at shortstop, Jack Reinheimer. Moving to the outfield, the finalists were the Rockers, Ben Aklinski and Quincy Lattimore; the Legends, Courtney Hawkins, Boog Powell, and Tillman Pugh; the Genomes, Anderson Miller and Moises Sierra; and the Dirty Birds, Juan Perez. Out of that group, the All-Star starting outfielders are Ben Aklinski, Courtney Hawkins, and Boog Powell. At DH, the lone nominee was Jerry Downs, and he was not guaranteed to be an All-Star. It wasn't guaranteed, trust me, because I don't really like the DH. However, he did enough, and Jerry Downs is also representing the South Division on my list of All-Stars as the DH. On the mound, the finalists for starting pitcher were the Honey Hunters, John Anderson, Deck McGuire, and Marcus Walden; from the Rockers, Jason Manzueta and Justin Nicolino; from the Legends, Kevius Sampson; and from the Dirty Birds, Kit Sheets. And the number one All-Star selection at starting pitcher is Deck McGuire. He just did so much in so little time. I know he wasn't here all that long, but to put up the numbers he put up in Gastonia's hitter-friendly park is incredibly impressive. Looking to the bullpen finalists for relief pitcher, they were Sam Bordner, Randall Delgado, and Euclides Layer, as well as Quentin Torres Costa from the Honey Hunters; Ryan Dull and Bryce Hensley from the Rockers; Daniel Gibson and Jeff Johnson from the Legends; Luis Guzman, Ryan Kellogg, Diego Moreno, and Tim Peterson from the Genomes. Finally, there was somebody who wasn't listed yesterday, and that's on me, because of course, of all the people that we're going to miss, it's going to be Tyler Wilson, who's been actually dealing this year. His ERA, I sorted by ERA, and he was so high up there, he actually scrolled up off the page. So sometimes you just overachieve yourselves into trouble. But he is also a finalist that was not listed yesterday. And, of course, the number one selection out of the bullpen is Tyler Wilson, because that is just my luck. And, of course, Tyler Wilson managed to do that. And maybe it's an apology to him, but, I mean, no one's been as good as him for as many innings. He has over 20 innings scoreless streak in this league. That is incredible work. You can't even argue how good that man has been. Looking at the rest of the pitchers who have been selected as ALPB Roundup All-Stars, we have Jason Manzueta, Justin Nicolino, Kit Sheets, and Marcus Walden. All 5 of these South Division starters have had their contracts purchased this year, so that's pretty noteworthy for the league. The remaining South Division All-Stars out of the bullpen are as follows: Randall Delgado, Ryan Dull, Luis Guzman, Bryce Hensley, Euclides Layer, Diego Moreno, Tim Peterson, and Quentin Torres Costa. Turning our attention back to the position players, the following players round out the All-Star selections as reserves: Luke Becker, Yovan Gonzalez, Connor Justice, Quincy Lattimore, Riley Mahan, Logan Morrison, Jimmy Paredes, Juan Perez, and Chris Shaw. That'll do it for the ALPB Roundup All-Star selections. There were several players I would categorize as near misses from the North Division: Niall Ball, Dakota Freese, Brett Kennedy, Melvin Mercedes, Stephen Tarpley, and Johnny Turbo all fit that description. The same could be said for Sam Bordner, Anderson Miller, and Tillman Pugh in the South Division. So to recap here, the number of selections for each team: the Blue Crabs led the way with 10 selections and 4 starters. The Rockers had 9 selections, 3 of them were starters. The Genomes managed 8 All-Star selections, 1 was a starter. The Honey Hunters had 7 selections, 4 of which were starters. The Fairy Hawks and Ducks both had 6 selections. The Fairy Hawks had 2 starters, while the Ducks had 1. The Revolution and Dirty Birds had 5 selections apiece. The Revs had 2 starters, and the Dirty Birds had 1. The Barnstormers had 4 selections, and 2 of those were starters, while the Legends' 2 starters were also their only All-Star selections this year. If you want more information, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of discussion on this on Twitter, on Instagram. I'll be posting all of the All-Stars there, following up on my post yesterday talking about who the finalists were. I appreciate you tuning in for this, and I appreciate you following along all season. Hard to believe we're already halfway there, and it's also hard to believe we're only halfway there. It's one of those weird things where time flies, and also time feels long, man. Indy ball grind. Until next time, I'm Ryan from ALPB Roundup. Y'all have a good one.
I may not have a lot, but I love what I got. A 4x4 and a good fishing spot. I hope this time my card